got my first curveball when I was 18 years old. I worked in a department store selling lipstick, makeup, and I earned £90 a week. I lived with my parents and my younger brother and younger sister. Now, the thing is, I'd been saving up for a holiday for over a year. With £90 a week, it wasn't very much money. I was so excited, I'd been packing the suitcase for over a month, deciding what I was going to take on this trip. I was going away for 2 weeks to Cyprus with my very hot fireman boyfriend. Now, it's Friday night. I go home, I'm not working for 2 weeks, and Friday night is what I like to call board night. What that means is we all sit round at the dinner table, and me being the eldest and the one earning a salary, Dad would say, "Where's your board, love?" And I'd have to give him £10. I thought this is going to be different, right? Because I'm going away on holiday for 2 weeks, and we sit around the dining table, and Dad said, "Hey, love, have you got your £10? And I said, "Dad, have you forgotten? I'm going on holiday tomorrow. I'm going away with John for 2 weeks. I'm getting the bus to Manchester Airport." And he said, "Well, love, it's not how life works, lass. You can't just ring the bank manager up if you've got a mortgage and say, 'Hello, Mr. Bank Manager, I'm going away for 2 weeks. How can you freeze my mortgage?' Or if you rent an apartment, you can't just say, 'Excuse me, Mr. Landlord, I'm going away. Can I just not pay my rent?' It's not how life is, love. And by the way, you've just reminded me, you're going away for 2 weeks, so that's 20 quid you owe me." Well, I was livid. The knife and forks go down on the table. I've got my little brother who's 16 going, "You've got to pay, you've got to pay." He's loving the argument. My sister, who's 10 years younger, has no idea what's happening. I'm so cross that I marched to the dining room door, and I want you to imagine it's one of those that's got, at the top end, these like glass plates. You know, it's a long time ago. And I go to slam the door because I want to smash one of those pieces of glass. The carpet was like this carpet, shag pile, orange. I slammed it with all its might, and all it did was shh. I got into the car. I was livid. I drove to my boyfriend's house. We went to the pub, and I was so cross, I ordered a bitter lemon and ice. And we sat and we concocted a plan. And the plan was this. When we got back from Cyprus, we were going to move in together, and that'd show them. Now, I stand before you feeling, even though I've got clothes on, feeling quite naked. Because what I'm about to share with you is my most vulnerable talk. In the last 10 years, I've had big curveballs, not little ones like £10. And so therefore, I ask you to be gentle with me. I ask you to support me. And there may be some emotion. And I do not apologize for that. So life sets off in 2012, and I wrote my first book. It was a great success. I love to raise money for charity, and I've run lots of marathons. So I found myself running the London Marathon, Madrid Marathon, and then the New York Marathon. And my husband, who was like my champion, always there at the end of the run, shouting out, you know, carrying everything, sorting out the travel plans, said to me on that flight back from New York, "Why do we have to fly to run marathons? Why can't you just run a marathon in Portugal?" I said, "Because they don't have them, sweetheart. Well, they only do half marathons." "Well, why don't you just run across their bloody country then?" "That's a very good idea." And he went, "Oh no." And so we set about this challenge. 7 marathons in 7 days. And we completed it. We got to the most western point of the Algarve in Sagres. We raised $65,000 for charity. You get a sense that life's good. I'm fit. I'm doing other things for other people. I found my passion, and that's to help others really live their very fullest of lives that they can live. I then cycled from Land's End to John O'Groats, only because Keith's best friend called me one day and said, again from Yorkshire, "Hey up, love, I think we should cycle the whole length of the United Kingdom." And I, for a joke, said, "Why don't we climb the national 3 peaks as well? Wales, England and Scotland." And he went, Hadn't thought about that. It's a great good idea. So that's what we ended up doing, cycling from the bottom to the top and climbing the National Three Peaks. At the end of that, we had a photograph taken to celebrate the end of that challenge. And the boys kept complaining about the kidneys. You take on a lot of water. It was very, very hot whilst we were cycling. And they kept saying, my kidneys are aching. And I was like, mine are fine. You two need to man up. And so I fly back to New Zealand and another curveball hits. It was identified that my left kidney was not actually fine. It had a tumour in it the size of a golf ball, and it needed to come out immediately. Now, you know the Frank Sinatra song, I left my heart in San Francisco. I left my kidney in Christchurch. And what I did was I opened up my toolbox of what I call neural mind hacks, and I chose a couple of tools that were going to help guide me along this journey. And what I decided to do was treat the journey like an adventure I hadn't chosen to go on, but I was on it anyway. So I might as well look at it through adventurous eyes. Not a cancer victim, not a cancer patient, but when the word cancer appears, so does a face that is not animated and does not talk about the future. So I chose this adventure. What I decided to do was even speak to an anaesthetist on the morning. She came to see me and she said, let me give you a little concoction just to relax you. And I'm like, oh no. I said, actually, I'm on this adventure. I've never been to hospital before, other than to see people. I'd love to meet the team and I'd love to see what an operating theatre looks like. I've never seen one. She was like, okay, that's weird. But we'll allow you. And I was like, you don't even need to push me down. I can walk. She went, no protocol. So I had to be wheeled down in my hospital bed. I met a team of 8 people wearing brilliant, bright purple clothing. They told me we were going to listen to Freddie Mercury throughout the surgery. What's not to love about that? And the operating theatre is super, super squeaky, squeaky clean. She told me not to touch anything, which was a bit weird because it was my body that was in there. However, I followed the protocol. And I said to her, the bed is so tiny. Like, how am I even going to stay on there? She said, don't worry, when you're on there, we strap you down. In fact, why don't you hop on to your own operating bed, which I did. So the mindset absolutely served me well. Now, this adventure comes with this also tagline of life is happening for me. If I'm a cancer victim, a cancer patient, then life's happening to me. Why has this happened to me? I'm as fit as a fiddle. I've just cycled from Land's End to John O'Groats. Come on, universe, this is not fair. That's life's happening to me. But life's happening for me. I don't know why this has been sent, but I'm sure curious to find out. It's an adventure. 10 years ago, I didn't know the answers, but now I do. So this life happening for me is a really great mind hack. Expect to know what the answers will be in the future. Life happening to me just renders you as a victim, puts you in a little grey bubble, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but it really takes away your power. Now, with this adventure, for me, what I needed to do was create a future memory, and I planned to run a marathon in 4 months' time. The surgery was done on the 14th of November, 2013, and on the 14th of March, 2014, I ran this marathon. Very, very slowly, but I ran it. And that was me going, hey, that's the end of cancer. Thank you very much for the lessons. Don't know what they are yet. Life's happening for me. All right, thank you, goodbye. I even got a tattoo of a dinosaur over my left kidney because this one's extinct, right? So there's my little T-Rex. And then life's trucking along great, and then another curveball hits. You see, when I was in that hospital bed in Christchurch, if an angel from the future had come and tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, Amanda, a year tomorrow, Keith's going to die, your husband that you've been with for 19 years, I'd have said, no, you've got that wrong. No, I'm the one that had the diagnosis, not him. But sure enough, a year tomorrow, he died. Now, I didn't get the toolbox out. I chose not to. I was like, universe, why me? Why me? And I climbed into my grey bubble. And what we do in our grey bubbles, at times, please know, it's absolutely necessary. particularly when we lose somebody. We need to grieve. We need to shut off. We need to do whatever we need to do. My choice was self-sabotage. I decided to stop writing, stop working, stop running. I don't think I was very pleasant to be around, and I drank way too much Pinot Noir, which I might add is delicious in Otago in New Zealand. And then I realized that I have a choice. I either stay in the grey bubble, which is the walls are going to get thicker and I'm going to get smaller, or I climb out of it and I live with the mind hack of life's happening for me. What is before me is for me. Now, a very good friend of mine said, let's go running. And we started running again. Vicky Onions. And we're running one of our favorite runs in New Zealand around this lake. And she literally stops, like in her tracks. I run into the back of her. And she said, Amanda, I've had this epiphany. It's like your life is like this artwork. The first half of it is rich and textured, and it's so colourful, and it's from your birth until the point that Keith died. And the second half is completely blank. You can put whatever you want in it. And if anyone's got the tools to do it, boy, you have. So I got designing. I got creating future memories. I wanted some magic back in my life. I wanted to go to Burning Man. I wanted to fall in love again. Now, I know myself well enough to know I'm not a solo traveller. I was with the hot fireman for 10 years. I was with a very tall basketball player for 5 years, first marriage. And then I was with Keith for 19 years. You get a sense that somebody that's been in relationships with 3 men would do the last little 100 meters, right? It's a relay, grabbing the baton of love past, that last 100 meters with a man. But I fell in love with a soul that happened to be attached to a female body. I fell in love with Sarah. Now, with that came a few curveballs that weren't necessarily mine. My own mother even said to me, you're not gay, love, you're grieving. It's the phase you're going through. And interestingly, it wasn't a curveball for me because when you know, you know. So Sarah and I decided to get married in Portugal in a vineyard. But before we got married, we thought, let's make sure we get into our wedding dresses. So we planned a cycle challenge, cycling from Courchevel in the French Alps to York in Yorkshire. That's 1,000 miles over 10 days, 100 miles a day, right? That's one way to get into your wedding dress. Now, what's interesting is that on the 5th of June, which was the end of the challenge, we only had 100 miles to cycle up to York. It is flat as a pancake. We had a wind behind us. It was a beautiful day. All the people at the charity were waiting for us. We had a spa hotel booked. It was incredible. And what actually happened was a curveball hit. Now, this curveball hit because what we learned was that Sarah's mum, who was 60 years old, Doreen, had been diving in Perth, Western Australia. 96 times she dived that site, collecting crayfish. And yet, that morning, she was attacked and killed by a great white shark. A month before we were due to get married. You've got more chance of being killed by a vending machine falling on you. You've got more chance of a coconut falling out of a tree and hitting you on your head. And boy, did Sarah climb into the grey bubble. Did she get angry? And for a while, she drank poison and hoped the shark died. I said to her, we don't need to get married. We can have our friends join us. We can put off the wedding. She went, my mum would bloody kill me. So we got married on the 7th of July. We went to Burning Man for our honeymoon. And then we embarked on this journey of IVF to see if we could have children. There's only one small component missing, so we felt that it would happen really quickly. But no, 3 failed attempts. And then eventually we were able to put a post on social media with our spoodles. Dot had a little sign around her neck saying, my mummies are getting me a human. And then Florence, her sister, had another little sign saying, and me one too, because we were pregnant with twins. Codename Bitsy and Boo. We didn't want to find out the sex. Everything else had been so scientific. And yet, on the 9th of May, 2019, in Invercargill in New Zealand, 2 beautiful baby boys were born, Noah and Jasper. They're now 4. Is life busy? Wow. Now, what I've talked about so far are extreme curveballs. Loss, life-threatening disease, trauma. But sometimes curveballs hit that I call middle of the road. Middle of the road. Now, when I got married the first time in 1994, there was a movie out called 4 Weddings and a Funeral. There were 4 weddings in that production, and every single bride was dressed like a meringue. I got married in 1994. Guess what my wedding dress was like? A meringue. My dad is with me, and the wedding was beautiful. I was married for life. And yet 5 years later, my husband came to me and he said, I want a divorce. I don't love you, and I've committed adultery. Curveball. But the thing was, I was in the middle of the road. It wasn't a brilliant marriage, but it wasn't too bad. It was just average. And at the time when the curveball hit, I climbed into my grey bubble. I didn't have the toolbox then. I stayed there for a while. But you know what? That curveball forced action. So when a curveball hits, what I encourage you to do is look at it, thank it, know that it will come with gifts out there in the future, and treat it like an adventure. Be curious to see what's going to show up. Life is happening for me. Now, I got home on that Friday night and I waited till everybody had gone to bed. I sneak in the house, even the little dog Tinker's asleep in his basket. The house is in darkness. Whew, I'm safe. Maybe I can get away without giving him the 20 quid. Maybe I can leave early enough. I sneak down the corridor and I go upstairs to my attic room. I switch on the light, and on the pillow is an envelope. And it says room for rent. And I'm like, are you kidding me? They've written an advert and they want me to read the advert. I'm like, what is this? My parents are crazy. So I rip the envelope open and I read it. And it says, room for rent. All your washing and ironing done. All your meals prepared. A brother and sister to play with, a dog to love. Barbecues, Christmases, sleepovers, parties. Advice whenever you need it. A shoulder to cry on. And always, always unconditional love. And all for the price of £10 a week. My name is Dr. Amanda Foo-Ryland. Thank you so much for spending time and being so gentle with me. Thank you.